Yo, what's going on YouTube? Right, so in the last video I showed you a demo of the project that we're gonna be working on. So in this video, or actually let me rather say, we're gonna first start off by building the API. So as soon as we're done building the API, we're then gonna move on to designing the mobile app. Now, during the process of building the API itself, we're going to be using Postman to do our testing and all those things. And then as soon as we've done with setting up the API itself, then we're going to start um, sorry about that, we then going to start off by or start designing the mobile app in Android Studio. So currently, we, as you can see from the screen there, I have the Spring Initializer already open. I'll leave a link in the description below as to this link. And then so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our Spring Boot application here. So we're gonna use the Java language, and then we're gonna select Maven. You can leave the default version of Spring, and then from here on we're gonna then name the application. So I'm just gonna name it my notes. And then I'm just gonna say underscore v1 because I already have a project called my notes. Let me just do it like that. I know it looks ugly, but yeah. Artifact, I'll just say my notes. Okay, and then let's just remove this. Let me just call this demo notes application. Alright, so now, oh, by the way, just so I can show you, I have Java 19 installed. So alright, so as you can see, I have Java 19 installed. So I would suggest installing Java 19 because the latest Spring Boot version, the latest Spring Boot version works from, if I'm not mistaken, from Java 17 going up. So anything lower, you might encounter some issues. So I have Java 19, which is fine for what we're going to be doing. So I would suggest at least installing from Java 17 going up. And then so yeah, everything else we're just going to leave as is. And then now we're just going to move to adding the dependencies. So we're obviously going to need the web, Spring Web, which is this one over here. And then we're going to need the database, which is going to be MySQL driver. And then we're going to be using the JPA API. And then okay, so this one I will explain later on, but I'm also going to I'm also going to add the Spring security. So we are going to need this when setting up when securing our application. Now let's just generate the application and download it, and then I'll explain afterwards. So let's just click generate. So now I'm gonna save it in my C drive, projects, YouTube folder. You can save it wherever you want, but I'm gonna save it here. So I'm just gonna save this. Might as well just copy this, and then yeah, just gonna click save, and then I'm just gonna extract the application. Okay, so now I'm gonna open this using Spring Boot. So IntelliJ. Keep saying that for some reason. Open in IntelliJ Community Edition. Apologies for that. Okay, let's just load the dependencies. Now let's just open the pom.xml file after this is done loading. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause the video because currently Maven is currently downloading all of the dependencies, and so it might take a while. So let me just pause the video and then I will return once it's done. One moment for me, please. Right, I think my project is done. Okay, so let me go to the pom.xml file. So now in terms of Spring security, nah? Okay, so this in the next video I'm gonna explain in depth, because we're gonna also do the configuration and all of those things. But just to explain, just by adding this particular dependency into this pom.xml file, the Spring security mechanism is immediately gonna kick in, meaning that we won't be able to access any of our routes, regardless of whether we're just creating a test controller or whatnot. The moment we add this dependency, it's not gonna allow us to access the application until we authenticate. I'll show you now just in a moment. So first I want to create a database so that we are able to so that we are able to run our application. Okay, let me just click that. Okay, so I'm just gonna create a new let me do this home. Alright, so I'm gonna say create. Oh, by the way, I'm using XAMPP, so if you don't know anything about XAMPP, again, I'll leave a link in the description below as to how you can install and set up XAMPP. This will give you all sorts of things like PHP, also a MySQL, and all other things. So the reason I have my PHP my admin is because I have it installed via XAMPP itself. So if you don't know about it, I'll leave a link in the description below as to where you can get XAMPP and how to install it. So I'm using PHP my admin to create the database, and then so I'm just gonna call it my notes underscore v1, and then just gonna click go. Alright, the database is created. Now the other thing is that we will need to give permissions to a user so that they are able to access this database. Now the simplest way to do this is via a script. So I'm just going to show you what the script looks like. So I'm going to say grant right on right I'm just gonna add my name there. So I have an account named Jason, and then I created a simple password just to access the database, but yeah, I'll show you just in a moment. Alright, so I already have this user created, and they already have full administrator rights and all of that stuff, but you might not necessarily have one. So if you can create a user, and then if you want to give them permissions, just use this script, this SQL script, to grant that user permission to have all privileges on this database, and then you should be good to go. So if I were to just comment this out and then run it again, it's probably going to give an error. But if you were to check under user accounts, apologies for that, let me just refresh here. Alright, so clearly my let me see, select all distinct users. Alright, so clearly my SQL is acting up for me. But what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna come into our Spring Boot application. We're gonna come here. Where am I now? Okay, main, resources, application properties. So just a second. So I'm gonna paste in what we're gonna be using, the configurations within this file. So I'm just gonna paste that, and then I'm just gonna change this from my notes to my notes underscore v1. Right, so now even though PHP my admin was giving me this error, that user that I was trying to show you now, this user is already created, so I already have administrator rights. So you might not get that error, but just run that script that I showed you, and then whatever user you created or whatever user you added in that script, it'll give them full rights, and then you should be able to execute anything on the database. So in your applications.properties, just add this particular configuration. This is the URL to the database, and then add whatever name, whatever you named your database, the user details, and then just add this as well. Even though sometimes it might not necessarily be required, but just add it because you never know. And then I'm just gonna use a different port for the server, so I'm gonna name it 007, so that it doesn't clash with anything using any other ports. Alright, and then I'm gonna save that. Now the other thing I want to do is create a test controller. So in here I'm gonna create a package. I'm gonna call it controllers, and then I'll just create one and say index controller. Alright, and then obviously this is going to be a test controller, sorry, a REST controller. Okay, and then in here we'll create a test route. So we're gonna say public string okay, so this needs to be a get route, so add get, and then I think we should just name it test. Alright, so so now that we have this Spring Security, I'm gonna try and run the application. Hopefully there's no errors, everything hopefully everything is set up correctly, and then we're gonna try and access this test controller that we just created, and you will see in a moment that Spring Security won't allow us due to how it's basically set up. Like I said it before, the moment you add this particular dependency, the Spring Security mechanism kicks in immediately. So we're gonna test now, and then when we come back we're gonna comment this out along with this one, and then you will see that by taking out the Spring Security dependency, now the application will be open to be accessed by anyone. So I'm just gonna come here, go to plugins, go to Spring Boot, then I'm gonna click run. Hopefully everything is working. Okay, so it might take a while to load, or maybe not, but I think I should pause the video while it's loading, and then we will return once the application is up and running. Alright, one moment for me. Oh, actually never mind. Okay, so it looks like the application is already running. So we're running on port 8007, right? So if I come back here and say localhost, and then I'll say 8007, right? And then let's just go to test. Alright, so as you can see, now we are prompted to sign in before accessing that test controller. So now if you're wondering, by default Spring Security has an account called user, which is this one, right? And then the password we're gonna get within the console. So if I come back here, when running the application, every time you run the application with this default configuration of Spring Security, it allows you, it generates a password when you run the application, which is this one over here. So I'm going to copy that, and then we're going to go back to the app, paste it in there, and then sign in. So now, as you can see, our test controller is now giving us is returning us the message that we typed in within the controller. Alright, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comment this out. So let me just stop the application from running. Okay, and I'm gonna come back here. Sorry, made a mistake there. So let me just move this. Okay, then I'm just also gonna comment this part out. Right, then I'm gonna run the application again. So wait, actually let me first reload the Maven repository. Alright, let's run the application again. Okay, so our application is up and running. So now if we go back again and say test, now it doesn't ask us to log in, because like I said, because we disabled we commented out the Spring Security dependency, the Spring Security mechanism is now removed completely from the application. So now we are able to access the application itself without having to log in. Again, just to show you, I'm gonna then put it back. Right, and then let's just also uncomment this and just stop the application from running. Okay, and let's reload the Maven dependencies and then run the application again. So as you saw, when we commented it out, the Spring Security mechanism wasn't there, wasn't blocking us from getting from accessing the application. So now that we've put it back in, just watch now. It's gonna the Spring Security mechanism is gonna kick in again, which means that we won't be able to access anything until we log in. Okay, so as you can see, after running the application, it generated the password again. That's also an indication that the Spring Security mechanism is already kicked in again. So now if we try, and I'm just gonna refresh, but if we try and access this test route that we created, now we are prompted again to log in. I'm gonna paste that password. As you saw, I copied it from the console here, and then I'm pasting it in. I'm gonna click sign in, and then now we can access our controller. So okay, that's just the gist of it in terms of how Spring Security works. So now our application is running. As you can see, our configuration is fine here as well. So in the next video, I'm gonna go deep into configuring Spring Security. It's gonna be needed at a later stage, because we're gonna use it when we set up our JWT utility, so that we are able to generate tokens and also authenticate tokens and stuff like that. So in the next video, I'm gonna then go deep into how to configure Spring Security and all the other things, and to allow us to access certain routes without having to authenticate. And so what else? And so yeah, from the next video, we most likely will then create all our endpoints and then use Postman to test everything, and then hopefully we will finish everything in terms of this particular API, because there's not much to do in it. The one part that will take most of the time would be setting up Spring Security and the JWT utility and stuff. And so I think for this video this should be enough. Again, like I said, I'll explain everything else when it comes to Spring Security within the next video, and then take it from there. So that's it for this one, guys. It wasn't too long, hopefully. Again, if you've liked what you've seen so far, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and then I will see you guys within the next video. Again, thanks for watching. Cheers for now.